Welcome to What is Going Om, for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Times flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. According to this week's guest, everything that occurs in our lives is recorded in our body's tissues as memories. And until our body learns to release any unexpressed traumas, challenges, and negative events, they will continue to run our lives, controlling our actions and our thinking without us ever being conscious of what's really running the show. Vickie Dodd is an internationally known pioneer in the field of sound as a bodyworker, an Aston patterning teacher, author, poet, nutritionist, herbalist, musician, and workshop leader. She started using sound as a healing modality in her work with her clients over 30 years ago. And she's trained with many master teachers in the art of body therapies and spiritual purification tools. Vickie Dodd joins me now to discuss her latest book, Healing Through Sound, Awakening Your Audible Body, which shares how sounding can rearrange our posture, release undigested emotional experiences, transform negative patterns into harmonious ones, and heal our bodies in many other ways. Vickie Dodd, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Grateful to be here.
You have been a practitioner of sound healing, working with bodies and listening to others for several decades.
Yes.
Where did your sound healing journey begin?
Where or how? How?
Both.
At
what point in your life and how?
Well, I was always able to perceive frequencies. I mean, as a child, I was always able to perceive, especially nature. I was fortunate that I was able to live deep in nature and up in trees and, not be bothered. Anyway, that was a very big gift. And so I had a relationship. With that which was around me. So I didn't know that it was strange or odd or you couldn't or shouldn't, or I didn't have any of those. I was a child. And so I'm in relationship with the tree. I'm in relationship with the plants. I'm hearing, I'm listening, I'm talking, I'm communicating. There's a communication going on. So that was the beginning. So that would have been in the long time ago. And so it's an alive world. And so when I became a body worker, basically so I could listen to bodies. I needed a front. So I trained in every form of physical therapies that I could find, nutritional therapies, you name it. I was hungry, starving. I wanted to know what was going on, but mainly I needed a laboratory. I needed to be able to listen. I didn't know anyone that was listening this way or talking about it, at least in my small little circle of world. And
What did you love so much about listening to bodies?
I'm sorry, what?
What did you love so much about listening to bodies? What did you get from that?
Well, one, mainly I was just needing to be in communication with other people. I needed communication. I needed relationship. I needed to know, was I alone? How are you perceiving? Do you perceive that? And I think that is innate in us. I think we want to be a part of, and I want to know, how is it that you're seeing this or thinking this, or, and so that was from the beginning. I wanted to, I just wanted to know, how do we communicate? How do we get along? How do we live in these bodies? How do we agree to stay? Because it took a long time for me to agree to stay, And,
did you always have a knowledge that there was so much more than this 3D world? Always.
Yeah. And that's good and bad.
Yes. Yeah. So the multi-dimensional approach to using sound as an evolutionary tool is something that came very naturally to you. It isn't something that unfolded over a period of time.
Well, I probably both and actually, but yes, it did come natural, and I did not know it was strange, and I'm so grateful that I didn't know that it might be odd or strange. That has been my gift, that I was that naive, I suppose. Um, I thought we were all perceiving this way. I thought and I think that is how we are as younger people. We think that everyone is perceiving the way we're perceiving, and
Mm.
that yeah. So I'm glad I didn't know.
You say that all matter is frozen music, that we are frozen music. I mean, that is such a beautiful visual. Tell me more about it.
Well, actually, I think I think I was quoting part of it was the first quote, I believe, was from Pythagoras. And I don't know if Pythagoras actually quoted that, but I found that quote, oh, I don't know, maybe in the 70s or something. I went, yes, yes. I mean, I really understood that someone else was also having that perception, whoever it was, way back then, and they gave it to Pythagoras, and who was part of all the mystery schools that a lot of us recall, and it seems to be all these different tones, all these different sounds. I mean, the body makes so many different sounds and shapes and there's so many frequencies in it that we respond to, uh, that it does seem like it's frozen music until we sound it. Then it wakes up and it becomes liquid, and then when we stop it, goes back into a shape again. You know, and cymatics taught us that many years ago. Hans Jenny's work in the 30s was showing how
Yes.
liquid moves, yes, by frequency.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, cymatics is fascinating,
Yes,
absolutely
yes,
fascinating.
yeah,
And I think we've had Masuru Emoto's work, and now we've got Veda Austin's, she's at the forefront of that, and many other people who
yes,
are working with water in different
yeah,
ways.
yes.
There's so much to water that we don't know.
Oh, there's so much and we are water.
Yes. Yes.
There's so much of
So
us.
much to ourselves we
We
don't
don't
know.
know exactly. We
Yeah.
are liquid.
Yeah.
And so it takes a great deal of work for us to get actually stuck and unmoving because we are liquid. So we have to do a whole lot to hold that liquid
Yeah.
back, you know?
Can we really rearrange posture? Can
I
we release? I mean, I understand about possibly releasing emotional experiences, but to physically change our
It
bodies?
does. It does. That was part of what my in the 70s, I guess, 70s and 80s when I was teaching. That's how I began teaching, was or demonstrating the power of sound before I ever knew anything about I don't even think I knew about Hans Jenny at that time, but I did know that sound was changing my form and that it could change my form. And
Yeah, you deliberately did some work on yourself, didn't
oh,
you, to
totally.
prove
That
that?
I was my own laboratory.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what happened?
Well, so I would do before and after pictures. I would have, you know, and because I wanted to see, I mean, I wanted to see how does sound actually affect this liquid system. I'm 70, 80% liquid. I'm a human being. So I have this liquidity, and can my voice with intention change my form, change my posture? I was always a body worker. So, um, and if you can use your voice, it's so much easier than using your muscle in terms of moving tissue. And yeah, so it works, it does. So I was doing before and after. I was demonstrating myself, putting myself out there in front of audiences to see, have them notice what they noticed about me, my breath, my energy, my posture, was I back behind myself, whatever they noticed, observed. And then I would sound that, my body at that time sound all that. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I tell you, Sandie, I was like the fool on the hill, because I didn't know if it would change. I didn't know how it was changing. I was just experimenting myself. I was fascinated by, oh, we are liquid. Sound does move liquid. My posture can change, by sounding my body. My emotions will be rearranged, transformed, transmuted by sound. I mean, I was in my own laboratory. And
So how
yeah,
did you I mean, how did you find the sounds? How did you identify which sounds were going to
I did
work the best?
I didn't. I just listened to my body and I just sounded what wanted to be there. And that's when I discovered that it's not this particular sound. It is basically the intention of sound.
The intention behind it.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard someone say once that the intention is the has an effect on the water within
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So basically, I would come in and say, please, I just want to sound what is ready and wanting to be sounded. I'm not in there trying to rearrange. I'm not trying to fix anything. I don't know what needs to be fixed or changed.
So whatever comes to you, you then make that sound.
Hmm.
What comes out of you, out
Yeah.
of your body.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Mm.
Tell me, what is Aston patterning?
Judith Aston had been part of the Rolf Institute. Do you know Rolfing, or have you heard of structural integration? It came out in the 60s, Dr. Ida Rolf.
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so that was Rolfing. That was Dr. Ida Rolf. And so we were part of the Rolf Institute. This is going back to the late 60s for me. And it was taking, it was learning how to use our body in this gravitational field. Without gravity is always coming down. How do I use the earth to keep supporting myself? So I'm having relationship with gravity. I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, but it was about the movement, education of the Rolf body is how it began. And
Mm.
yeah,
You
yeah,
use sounding to match the unique sound print of a person. How do
yeah.
you do that?
By listening, it's all by listening and being willing to not know. And I know I'm making this sound mysterious, but I'm not. But that's the whole premise, is coming to the body of not knowing, not coming like I'm going to change the posture. I don't know, coming from, I don't know how you want to change. I don't know how you need to change. I don't know what needs to take place. So I'm really just going to try to listen to what you want to have expressed. So coming from that kind of just honesty, you know, and willingness to not know. I think that's probably our greatest power. I'm sorry, sometimes I think when I listen to the younger, well, I don't know, people uh, want to, we know this, we know that. I don't know a thing. I have been touching people for 60 years. I've been working. I find it fast. I love not knowing. Let me not know, you know.
So do you find yourself going around and, you might be somewhere at a gathering with a number of people and you find yourself kind of listening to people's bodies without even intending to do so?
Well, not as much now. I have learned to stay out of people's business, which is very, very important. I didn't have any boundaries as a young woman. I thought it was my business. I thought your business was my business. And not unless you've hired me. Otherwise, it's none of my business what's going on.
So when someone comes to you for a private session,
Hmm.
um, what's the first thing that you do?
Well, I want them to be able to see before and after. So I want them to see how their bodies can change, and that it is this liquid system. So basically, I just have them walk around and notice and take some feedback for themselves. If I do not have the feedback, if I don't know where I'm starting from, I may feel different and better after a session, but I want to know. This is the scientist in me, I suppose. Is like, what actually happened? Oh, my weight was way back on my heel. Oh, my lower back was hurting. Oh, my head was done. Whatever. I need to know where I'm beginning. So I can appreciate where I've come. You know, uh, Otherwise, I go, oh, that was nice. That was good. But I want it to be cognitive. I want to demystify how these bodies can change. There's enough
Mm.
mystery. I don't want to keep creating mystery about it or having people think that I'm mystical. No, it's a liquid system.
I remember reading probably about 25 years ago, and I cannot remember the guy's name. He's very well known. he was a chiropractor, and he developed some kind of table that allowed him to play music and certain sounds
Yeah.
on the table, and people's bodies would come into alignment. Their
Yeah.
bones would come into
That
alignment.
John Palumbo, was that his name? I remember this man. I knew him going back years ago. I can't remember. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so there was this was a beautiful, I think his son developed this table where, underneath it were all these strings, like, like on a monochord or yeah. Yeah, that was fun.
And I understand that they're actually using sound in the chairs for people who are having chemo IVs, and
Beautiful.
they've found that they need less of it,
Beautiful.
and
Yes.
they're less sick.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, I love that. That's just wonderful. That's just wonderful. Yeah.
So the sound becomes the carrier of the intention. I wonder, could you have the same result without the sound?
I'm sorry, what?
Could you have the same result without the actual sound?
Absolutely.
You can.
I mean, most of the sounding that I have done, not most, a huge portion of it has been silent sounding. My first 10 years of practice, I didn't make sound out there. No one wanted it. I mean, I shouldn't say no one wanted it, but it was. So I would ask permission from their soul, real or imagined, if I could sound their body. And so I would mentally be sounding their body.
I think I've said this on air before, and it just is something that absolutely fascinates me, and I still haven't found the answer. I've studied astrology for many, many years, and some
Yeah.
years ago, I came across this tiny little book written by an engineer about astrology. And in it, he spoke about meeting someone a musician, who said, "I can play your chart for you." And he did. And what got me about that was the fact that I've always loved Holst's Planet Suite, and I especially love Jupiter. And Jupiter is actually at the very top of my chart. It leads my chart. And that made me think, how does that happen? How can someone play your chart?
I love that. I mean, I have never heard that before, but I had an astrologer friend. This is going back into the early 70s. We were sharing a studio together in Chicago, and I would sound the charts of her people.
Just by looking at the chart?
Just by looking at the chart.
So what is going on there? Then clearly, I mean, is this your ability? Is it a form of synesthesia?
I've never named it.
You've never named it.
I've always just said I can hear, I perceive. I wish sometimes that I hadn't started using the word sound. I really wish I hadn't started that way, because I meant so many things with sound. I meant that it's visual. It's yes, it is sound, but it's color, it's frequency, it's rhythm, it's
It's so many things. Yes,
it's so many things.
And
it's placement in a chart. It's the geometry.
the geometry, exactly. Do you think that it is the most important thing? It is the source of all life.
That's what they tell us, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's it seems, certainly I think sound is the future of medicine, without any doubt. I mean, we've seen so much evidence of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because it can move through. Yes, exactly.
So how does it relate to color and shape? How are they joined in some way?
Well, I don't know, but I do know that they are. I don't know how they are, but I do know that we see and hear, and we see color. We feel color. I mean, all of our expressions is like, I was seeing red, I feel blue, that's simplicity, but that's basically, it is simple, and all I have to do is walk through where I'm, and I used to use color so much, especially being out in nature, and I'd be blue or going through things and letting that green just come through my eyes, come through my cells, letting it do that's how I learned about color. That's how I learned about everything, really, is using my own body as a laboratory. How does it help if I let all of my cells just let the green come in, that especially that spring green. So imagery probably is in some ways, our greatest tool of healing. Let me, and I remember, I think that's where a lot of us began, or at least in my generation, began, was the power of image, the
Did
images.
you ever read the book? I think it was published somewhere around the 80s or 90s, called Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain.
Yes, yes, yes.
And in that book, Sheila Ostrander and her co-author, they reported on an Eastern European, I don't know if he was a scientist or a physician, who was teaching blind people how to see. And he started off using colored sheets of paper, and they were using their fingertips, and they were feeling the frequency, and they would begin to identify the color by, red is sticky, it's got a stickiness to it, and blue is very slippery, and eventually some of these people, without regaining their sight, were able to see things that were in the room and identify and speak about them.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes.
To
Yes.
think that would come through a frequency, I mean,
Yes.
it's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. I love that. That's, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about vowel shaping. You write, about matching the color and the qualities of each vowel to reclaim your voice.
Well, the vowels, I mean, I only know it I don't know it in Eastern, anyway, in most of our Western languages, we have this same vowel system. And so the shaping, I started working with the shaping, how I could shape the vowel in my body and what that would do. And so that's fascinated me. We are a liquid system, so any imagery that I might be using, and the vowels, I don't know in terms of historically, but it's ancient, and it's the root of our languages, and how it creates these shapes. And there was always this power of the vowels, I mean, A, E, I, O, U, and so so I just started seeing, how does that shape me? I wanted, so I used my own body as a laboratory, which I really um, suggest and invite for people to do, like, don't take it, see what it does for you. And so let the ah shape me. How is that going to do? Let the O shape me, inside, I'm a liquid system. I need to keep recalling and remembering that I am liquid. And these sounds, these vowels that have so much history on them, people have been, it's, I can't speak today, but I know what I mean. Uh, uh, let them shape me, be your own laboratory.
You found that the sound, the E sound,
E.
can break up emotional congestion in
Yeah.
parts of the
Yeah.
body.
Yes.
So if I had, if I'd had an accident, a particular area of my body was damaged, and that trauma stays in the cells there. If I were to, sound E and visualize it going into that part of my body, would that help release any emotional trauma there?
So again, I would say, do it and see. I mean, I know that we teach in terms, this sound does this, that sound, and it will, because we can create anything. But mainly I may use that as a starting place. And then I want to listen to, where does it want to go? So I might start with that. So I'm only wanting to use that as a place to enter. I'm not wanting to marry it. I'm not wanting to enshrine it. I don't want to fix it. I am a liquid system. You are a liquid system. We live on a liquid system. I'm wanting to be able to just enter so then I can listen to what comes next.
But you would do it with the intention of
I would do it with
releasing some emotional trauma.
Yes, releasing or knowing what I'm to do next. I want to follow it. Where is the strand of it? Where is where is it connected? What is the teaching of it? Not trying to get rid of anything. It's usually just needing to be rearranged.
What is the difference between listening to these sounds and uttering them ourselves? Can just listening to a sound, could you record something, I don't know, somebody's session, and then they can listen to it and it's the listening that's actually doing the healing?
Yes.
Or must it be uttered?
Both and, yes, both and,
Very interesting.
Yeah. Because, as the old expression goes, is that you can't step in the river in the same place twice. So I am a liquid system. So it's not like, oh yeah, I've already heard that. Oh yeah, I've already sounded that. It's going to have another layer. It's immense how many layers there are. I mean, I have no clue.
So recording some of these sounds, or recording yourself making these sounds,
yes.
Could be quite a valuable tool.
It's a very valuable tool. I've been doing sound sessions for years, and with the pandemic, everything I've been doing has been on Zoom or on phone. So I record the session for people so they can re-listen to it many times, because it's going to be edited. It's not like, oh, I already did that session. No, because it's a liquid system, so it's coming into a different place.
How do you feel when you think about the potential that lies in sound? I mean, for me, it's somewhat frustrating because I just see that it's so vast. Are we ever going to know exactly what we can do with sound?
Yeah, I would probably be on the same page with you. It is so vast, and my concern is that I may be on too much of a different spectrum from a lot of my colleagues. I don't want to make sound a fix-it tool. I want to make it more of an evolutionary possibility. And maybe it's because I've been a body worker for 50 or more years. So I used to joke and say, I get fixed, I just don't stay fixed. Because, it's I don't think that fix is the solution.
No.
It's like, what is this evolving me into the next phase?
Yes.
And so I do see that we're making sound, and it is becoming, and I don't even think it's necessarily wrong. It's just not my path. I don't want to make it a fix-it tool. Do this sound for this, do that. So I'm mainly wanting to teach people how to be in their own laboratory and listen to what wants to sound. And yes, maybe they need an instruction because, we start thinking louder is more, or I've got to always have all this angst. That's not necessarily true. That may be my mind or my story just keeps repeating itself. Instead of, could there be an evolutionary possibility? Could I get a different story?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're a different story every single day, aren't we?
Every single. Thank goodness.
We're going to take a short break now. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is internationally known pioneer in the field of sound as a bodyworker, Vickie Dodd. And we're discussing her latest book, Healing Through Sound, Awakening Your Audible Body, which shares how sounding can rearrange our posture, release undigested emotional experiences, transform negative patterns into harmonious ones, and much more. We'll be back in a few moments.
Times TV.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of Times flagship radio show, What Is Going On. And as an author, editor and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who have walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees and no BS, just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Everything that we do, we can do in a contemplative manner. Through the art of contemplation, you can use the gene keys in a really powerful way. Gene keys is basically the code book of life. In the gene keys, the book is made up of these three levels: shadows, gifts, and siddhis. And the journey is through those three levels, kind of unpicking of the shadow states, the releasing of the gifts, and then the embodying of this higher consciousness called the siddhi. And the siddhis are very exalted words. And it's not like we kind of suddenly are all these exalted Christ-like beings, but we have flashes and illuminations along the journey. And the more we get stuck into the journey, the more illumination comes to us, because the more we're releasing the light from in these codes inside our DNA. So all those revelations are inside us. So the contemplative way is the inner way.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back. Vickie Dodd, are you still with us?
I sure am.
Good. In your section on the physicality of amnesia and memory, you wrote that back in the mid-80s, as our use of technology and electronics and computers began to grow, you started seeing more circulatory stagnation, more nervous system concerns in your clients, and the biology began to change quite rapidly.
Yeah.
Now, you said that you felt something was entering our bodies to dumb us down, covering an impulse to awaken. Tell me more about that.
I found that the frequency that was chosen to use for us being on the computers has the ability to coagulate my liquid. So I have even a greater responsibility to use frequency to keep myself liquid. I think it's more challenging as the years go on, for all kinds of reasons, for us to keep ourselves liquid. And I think we need to be aware of it. It's not like, oh, that's evil or that's bad. It's just that it's an is. It is what takes place. Uh, and maybe that we didn't even know that that would take place. We didn't know that so much of the electronic world and, like living by those radio towers and all, I mean, that have the ability to affect our liquid self. And yeah.
What frequencies in particular? Because, I mean, there was a time when we lived among natural frequencies.
Yeah.
Completely natural. Now we are surrounded by
Artificial.
artificial.
Yeah.
So how do we know what frequencies we should be avoiding?
I don't know if that would probably be very challenging to know all of that. So somewhere I have to come into finding what my own best resonance is to keep myself fluid, to keep myself alert, alivened, instead of looking at what are all those, I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to live long enough to know all that, but I do need to know what mine is and what keeps me fluid and what keeps me enlivened. That's why we are so fortunate if we can sound at all to start practicing. What is my frequency? And some people, just, years and years ago, a lot of us began this. I didn't know what we were doing, but, I was studying in Hinduism and Buddhism and Om and chanting. And well, it was actually helping me stay more liquid, stay more alive, stay more willing to be able to listen. It's all about listening. But I don't want to go into this frequency does that. That's not my expertise. I only know in terms of my own laboratory. So I'm needing to know what keeps me enlivened. Like, I would say just very honestly, today, I was up a lot last night. I have a dear, dear friend who is dying. So I've been a midwife for people dying for a long, long time, decades, actually. And so it has affected my liquidity today.
And you notice what happens when your liquidity is affected.
Oh, absolutely. Things aren't firing as fast and and it's, yes.
Well, that takes us to something else that you said when you said that, the main benefit of vocalizing with intention and awareness is increased memory.
Yeah.
We have forgotten so much that we used to know.
Yes.
And a lot of that interference, if you like, is causing us memory problems.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And yes, and that was one of the first teachings that my own sounding for myself started teaching me. It's like, oh, it's helping me remember. It's helping. And I was a young woman and I was already way into forgetting. You don't have to be old to not be remembered. I mean, it was, and so that was the beginning was already there. The setup, the track to go to sleep was there. And that's when I started sounding and listening to other people's bodies of the congealedness of watching literally, I could see it along the especially around the cervical area, a congested place, all along that spine, but definitely in certain areas. So I think part of our responsibility for self-care is finding ways, whatever that might be. And there's many, many ways. Color, I see color, sound, frequency, movement being very similar, just different frequencies. Finding our own ways of keeping ourselves enlivened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that we have this phrase about waking up.
Yes, waking up.
Out of a dream or something, where it's like, oh, yes, I remember now. I mean, you're a licensed nutritional therapist as well, and you write about how, the laboratory produced foods, etc., have all influenced our body chemistry.
Yes.
And the liquidity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because we don't think to notice these things. I mean, it is happening right here
Happening right.
inside me, and
Mhm.
yet how often do I notice?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's part of it. It's part of it, and it's part of the humility that comes from living. You go, "Phew, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I am being affected by absolutely everything." I mean, I didn't know until about 3 o'clock this morning how affected I was being from my friend dying. You know, I've learned so much from my friends that have died. I don't know how connected I am in their field, or they're connected in my field. What they take from me that is theirs when they go, or what I get back. You know, there's so much mystery.
Yes. Yeah.
There's so much mystery, and I think that often we want to, or part of my generation was that we should not be ever affected. If we did everything just right, we would not be affected. Well, that's not my experience,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And
What
yeah.
do you think about missing tones in the voice? I mean, Arnie Williams' work, she has created a way to find the missing tone. What do you know about that?
Not a whole lot, I'm so sorry to say. It's not been my form of listening. Um, I don't know what is missing. Um, I think that I can cultivate more frequency. I can cultivate and grow more possibilities. Um, but I don't necessarily know if it's missing.
Mm.
Um, maybe I don't need it. I mean, I've I think it comes from being a body worker for decades. I know less than I used to know a lot more. And I don't say that jokingly. I really did. I knew about this one,
Yeah.
and and um, and I don't know any longer. It's like, will that enhance me by knowing more? I don't know.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, can I go deeper? Can I go deeper? I'm at an age now where most of my life is like, may I go deeper into source. May I go deeper into source. May I keep getting out of my way. I don't, and I'm a double Pisces. I see you're a strong. I'm a double Pisces, so it's easy for me to go into that realm. Um, uh, but thank goodness I have an Aries moon, so I would have never came out of the drawer. I would have never ever done anything. But I don't question these things. Maybe I need to question more. Most of my colleagues, they question a lot more than I do. Sometimes I just don't.
Well, I'm a double Gemini, so it's
Oh, you
harder for
question
me
everything.
to get where you go, and I'm the one that has to ask all the questions.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. And yeah, yeah. I love that. Yes.
So let's talk about sound as a spiritual solution and singing love songs to one's shadow. I absolutely love that.
It's crucial. It's far more important to me than what the other question that you were asking, like what is it's like, how do I love this being that I have been given to wear, to this package that I'm in, the story that I have? That is probably, may I get there this life completely, you know, uh, regardless of what, this happened, that happened, they did, whoa, whoa, whoa. How do I have, teach my body, can I just love this system as it is? You know, uh, being in Bali, I write about that, I think, in the book as well. Bali taught me so much about, you know, that kind of love. Let me love what is, instead of like, oh, if you were only different, I would love you. If you get fixed, then I will love you. I am ruined, so I can't be loved. I have done, who needs an enemy? When you've got that going on, how, teach me how to love this being unconditionally, not to question, oh, source made a mistake here. No, let me just, love songs to the shadow, and let me cease fighting. Let me cease fighting everything and everyone, especially inside of this being. You know, yeah, love songs to the shadow. Let me love all of me, warts and all.
Would you actually say those words?
Yes.
Would you sing those words?
Yes.
You would. So the way to, so you'd sing all of the things that you.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, exactly. Teach me how to love this being. I don't know how. And coming to it like that, I don't know how. You know, I've got all these judgment. I've got all these opinions. If you'd have slept better, you'd have looked better, you'd have sounded better, you would have known more, you'd have been clearer, you'd have been much more clever today, Vickie. But you're tired. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, you know, this is how it is. You know.
Of course, most people, will do anything to avoid acknowledging that shadow.
I suppose that is true. And to me, that's where all the juice is. That's where my teachings are. Let me go. Let me go into there. And so it's this whole path is about, let me trust that I am held. Let me trust that I'm going to be all right, whatever that might mean. Let me learn to listen. I don't mean being foolish. I don't mean just stepping off the cliff. But let me know that there's something greater than me. I need to trust that. And I'm not speaking religiously, but I am speaking spiritually.
Yeah.
And thank goodness there's something greater. Thank goodness. I mean, and keep a sense of humor about this path. But yes, let me walk that walk of mainly being grateful that I get to walk this walk today.
Yeah.
And to be here with you, I mean, what a gift. I mean, seriously. I'm so, and I'm not just yakking. I'm grateful to be meeting you. I'm always grateful when I meet another soul on this path. We're not a dime a dozen, and so I acknowledge it. And I think acknowledging that in others, like, oh, I am so, good. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad we're walking this time together. And it may sound simple and it may sound schmaltzy, but I think it's that.
I understand. We all know that we're living in a very chaotic transitional time.
Mm-hmm.
Many people are filled with anxiety like they've never known before because nothing is certain anymore. Would it be a good idea for people who are feeling anxious and afraid to sing songs to themselves?
Absolutely. Sing anything, but also just loving on this body, like, the body loves the sound of our voice and it just loves it. It's like, oh, soothing it, loving on it, not trying to change it or rearrange it, or if you were only different, then I could love you. Let me teach me how to just love you. Yes. Unconditionally. And again, coming from the place like, I don't know how. Let me be teachable. Let me be your student. I mean, really humble ourselves to ourselves.
Yes.
And
silent humming.
Oh,
I mean, I know Jonathan and Andy Goldman wrote the humming effect, and I find that fascinating. And when you hum, you can feel the vibration going through your body. Tell us more about silent humming.
Well, the silent humming has been a great teacher for me because I've always been sounding and I've always been using the hum. I think it was probably one of the first sounds I really learned about from a man named William David, who started the first sound school in the United States in the late 50s in Houston, Texas. And so he introduced the power of the hum to me back in a long time ago. And that it would start soothing my nervous system. I always needed my nervous system soothed. So I would take that hum, and silently humming is probably more potent than even, I think silent sounding is probably more potent for me anyway at this stage in my life than even the audible expression, because silently I can go all over any place and I can have several voices at the same time. Our imagination, our ability to image sound throughout our bodies. We don't want to miss that. We don't want to miss that. The potential of it, the potential of being able to navigate the inner world here. And I have found that doing silent sounding allows me to do that. I traveled a great deal, and I would be in people's, especially in Europe and South America, and I would be in someone's, apartment, let's say, and I'm needing to really release stuff. I could do it. That's where I started really appreciating the power, because I could lay there in my bed, like,
Yeah.
And it would work because it was my intention. It was my movement expression, letting the sound move me, move my liquid. It had the emotional release. So it's not about volume. People often think that it's about how loud we sound or how good we sound, Yeah.
Well, there's nothing like giving people experiences. And I know that you have a little exercise that protecting ourselves from computers and technology, and all of the electronics that we're constantly plugged into. And you write about sounding the hum silently or loud as we sit at our computer, and then pause and move away
Yes,
from the screen.
yes. I mean, thank goodness we have computers. Thank goodness we have all the electronics that we have. But I also need to know that there is the pros and cons, and how do I take care of myself in this? Because I don't even know that I'm being coagulated. I don't know that it's affecting my liquid, Yeah. So I can sit here and talk with you after a while, and I can keep a frequency going in my body. I can keep movement going, and I think that I think most of us can learn to do that. It is the power of intention and staying grounded, let me stay in this body, and let me remember to keep moving. And I can have a hum going on. I can have hum. No one needs to know it. That's why I love flying. That you can match that, and no one knows you're doing it, but you're being able to keep yourself more liquid, more present.
Isn't it interesting that over the last 40, 50 years, we don't hear people singing in the street anymore. I mean, apart from, buskers,
Right.
we don't hear people whistling as they go along the street.
That's true.
People are afraid to make sounds.
Yes, that's quite an observance. Yes, it's true. Yes, because I remember it well. People singing and whistling always in a tune, and da da da, and exchanging. Even our languaging was like an exchange. Da da. And it was.
Yeah, all those old 50s films with the guys walking down the street whistling their heads off, cheeky chappies. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Maybe that's part of that memory loss, with
part of the memory loss, part of the fear, the power of fear.
Yeah.
The fear of expression. It's so much easier now to get a group to sound, but I remember how difficult it was to get a group to make any sound, going back a few decades ago. It's like, there used to be this thing called the greatest fears, and I think right at the top was the fear of public speaking. Yes. But I really think that probably the sounding probably is even above that.
So we've only got about a minute or so left.
Oh, okay.
What was the inspiration for writing this book? I mean, you've written 2 books now. You probably could have written a lot more, but this book is so comprehensive. I mean, it is a truly eye-opening book, and I'd recommend it to anybody. But why did you decide to write it now?
I wanted to demystify. I wanted to simplify the use of voice as medicine. I'm not wanting to look at it as a scientist or like this frequency does this. I wanted to make it just usable. What is your voice? Trusting your voice. You can learn how to match frequencies, but what is yours? So and I tried to put stories in it of practical stories of how working with people with sound, my own experiences with my own body. As mutable as my chart is, um, I'm a very practical woman. Let's make this very workable. I don't think I need to create mystery. There's plenty of mystery. So I wanted to make it actually tangible. Yeah,
very transparent, very transparent. I learned a lot. Thank you for writing it. We're out of time now, so unfortunately, that's it for today. But thank you so much for joining us, Vickie.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored. Yes. Blessed be.
Healing Through Sound, Awakening Your Audible Body by Vickie Dodd is published by Findhorn Press, a division of Inner Traditions International. For more information about Vickie Dodd's videos, podcasts, CDs, and private sessions and her books, visit her website at www.sacredsoundworks.com. That's it for this week. All episodes of this show are available as podcasts on the Om Times website, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Audible platforms for you to download for free of charge and listen on the go. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. Thanks for being with me today. I'll be back at the same time next week. Till then, it's goodbye from me, and thank you again to Vickie Dodd.
Thank you. Grateful.